Pay attention to the woman in the purple running jacket. She's stretching against a park bench, checking her fitness watch, adjusting her earbuds. It's 6:47 a.m. on October 12, 2023. The sun is just beginning to rise over Riverside Park in Columbus, Ohio. Her name is Catherine Reynolds. She is 34 years old, mother of 2 daughters, ages 7 and 9. She works as a dental hygienist at a practice 3 miles from her home. Thursday mornings are her running mornings, the 1 hour of the week that belongs only to her. Her husband David has already gotten the girls ready for school. Catherine will be home by 8 a.m. to kiss them goodbye before the bus arrives. She starts her run. The camera follows her for another 12 seconds before she disappears around the curve of the jogging path. Now, pay attention to the man in the gray sedan parked near the trailhead. He has been there since 6:30 a.m. The engine is running. He is watching. Within 90 minutes, Catherine's phone would be powered off. Her fitness tracker would stop recording, and her family would begin the worst day of their lives. This was not a random encounter. It was a hunt. Catherine Reynolds was a creature of habit. Every Thursday at 6:45 a.m., she ran the same 3-mile loop through Riverside Park. The route was popular with morning joggers. Safe, well-lit, frequently patrolled. She'd been running it for 2 years without incident. That morning, she'd posted a photo to her private Instagram account at 6:41 a.m. A selfie in her car, coffee cup in hand, caption reading, "Thursday therapy session. Let's go." The post showed a woman who was content, healthy, living the balanced life she'd worked hard to build. Her husband David described their morning as completely normal. Catherine had been in good spirits. They'd discussed weekend plans. She'd reminded him about their daughter Maya's parent-teacher conference that afternoon. She would be there. She was always there. By 8:15 a.m., Catherine had not returned home. David called her cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. He checked the Find My Phone app. Her location showed her last known position as Riverside Park at 7:03 a.m. The device was now offline. At 8:47 a.m., David Reynolds called 911. The initial response was swift. Columbus Police Department dispatched 2 patrol units to Riverside Park within minutes. Officers walked the jogging trail. They found nothing. No signs of struggle. No abandoned personal items. No Catherine. Her car was still in the parking lot where she'd left it. Keys in the ignition. Purse on the passenger seat. Water bottle in the cup holder. Everything exactly as it should be, except Catherine herself. The park security cameras were reviewed immediately. Catherine was seen entering the trail at 6:49 a.m. She never emerged. The trail was 3 miles long with 2 exits. Cameras covered both. Catherine appeared on neither. Detective Maria Vasquez was assigned to the case. By 10 a.m., she recognized the urgency. A mother of 2 vanishing during a morning jog in a populated park was not an accident. This was an abduction. By noon, search teams were combing every inch of Riverside Park. Canine units, helicopter surveillance, volunteer searchers spreading through the wooded areas adjacent to the trail. The local news picked up the story by 1:00 p.m. Catherine's face was on every screen in Columbus. David Reynolds stood in front of cameras that evening, his voice breaking. He described his wife as devoted, careful, beloved. He held up a photo of Catherine with their daughters. The girls were not present. They were with family, shielded from the growing media presence, unaware of the full scope of what was happening. The first 48 hours in a missing person case are critical. The clock was ticking. Detective Vasquez's team began with the obvious angles. Was there any marital discord, financial trouble, mental health crisis, history of disappearances? The answers were all negative. The Reynolds marriage was stable. Their finances were solid. Catherine had no history of depression or erratic behavior. She was, by every measurable standard, a woman who had no reason to vanish. The investigation shifted to potential witnesses. Morning joggers were interviewed. 17 people had been in Riverside Park between 6:30 and 8 a.m. that Thursday. Most were regulars. Many recognized Catherine by sight. One witness proved significant. Janet Hollister, age 62, walked her dog through the park every morning. She'd been on the trail at approximately 7 a.m. She remembered seeing Catherine running past her, heading south on the loop. Janet also remembered something else. A man, mid to late 30s, black, tall, athletic build. He'd been standing near the junction where the main trail split toward the nature preserve, a less trafficked section of the park. He was wearing dark athletic clothing. He'd been looking at his phone. Janet thought nothing of it at the time. Lots of people checked their phones on the trail, but Janet remembered one detail that made Detective Vasquez's instincts sharpen. The man had looked up as Catherine ran past him. He'd watched her, and then he'd started walking in the same direction she was running. Janet hadn't seen either of them again. The security footage was reviewed with this new information in mind. The cameras at the main parking lot were high quality. Every vehicle entering or leaving was captured. At 6:32 a.m., a gray Honda Accord had pulled into the lot. The driver was male, black, alone. He'd parked near the trailhead, but had not exited the vehicle immediately. He sat in the car for approximately 15 minutes. At 6:49 a.m., the same minute Catherine began her run, the man exited his vehicle and walked toward the trail entrance. The cameras did not cover the interior of the park. What happened next was not recorded. But at 7:34 a.m., the same gray Honda Accord exited the parking lot. The driver was visible in the footage. He was alone. He appeared calm, unhurried. The license plate was partially obscured by mud, but forensic analysts were able to enhance the image. Within 6 hours, they had a plate number. The vehicle was registered to a rental company, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. The car had been rented 4 days earlier by a man named Kwame Osei. The hunt was no longer for a shadow. It was for Kwame Osei. Kwame Osei was 37 years old, Ghanaian immigrant. He'd arrived in the United States in 2015 on a work visa. He lived in a small apartment in the Hilltop neighborhood of Columbus. He worked as a delivery driver for a logistics company. On paper, he was unremarkable. No criminal record, no history of violence, no red flags. But when detectives arrived at his apartment on the evening of October 13th, Kwame Osei was not there. His neighbors reported they hadn't seen him in 2 days. His employer confirmed he hadn't shown up for his shift that morning. A search warrant was obtained for his apartment. What investigators found inside painted a very different picture of Kwame Osei. The apartment was sparsely furnished, but on his laptop, detectives discovered a folder containing screenshots from social media accounts. Dozens of women, all runners, all in the Columbus area. Catherine Reynolds' Instagram account was among them. There were also photos taken from a distance, candid shots, women jogging in parks, women leaving gyms, women walking to their cars. The timestamps on the photos dated back 3 months. Kwame Osei had been watching, planning, hunting. A forensic sweep of his vehicle, the gray Honda Accord, revealed traces of blood in the trunk. DNA testing would later confirm it was Catherine Reynolds' blood. But Catherine herself was not in the apartment. She was not in the car. And Kwame Osei had vanished. An Amber Alert was issued, though Catherine's daughters were not missing. Catherine was. The alert was reclassified as an endangered missing person notice. Kwame Osei's photo was distributed to every law enforcement agency in Ohio and surrounding states. Tips began flooding in. Osei had been seen at a gas station in Lancaster, Ohio, 40 miles southeast of Columbus. Security footage confirmed it was him. He'd purchased gasoline, bottled water, and a prepaid burner phone at 9:15 a.m. on October 13th. He was running. The FBI joined the investigation. This was now a federal case. Interstate flight. Possible kidnapping for ransom, though no ransom demand had been made. The working theory was darker. Osei had abducted Catherine Reynolds with intent to harm. David Reynolds held another press conference on October 14th. He spoke directly to Kwame Osei. He begged him to release Catherine. He offered no judgment, only desperation. He wanted his wife home. His daughters needed their mother. The media coverage intensified. Catherine's story was national news. Her face was everywhere. The narrative was heartbreaking and infuriating in equal measure. A mother, a morning jog, a predator. And still, there was no sign of Catherine. On October 15th at 2:17 p.m., a hiker in Hocking Hill State Park, approximately 60 miles southeast of Columbus, called 911. He'd heard what sounded like someone crying for help. State troopers and local deputies converged on the area within 30 minutes. Search dogs were deployed. A helicopter with thermal imaging swept the forest canopy. At 4:03 p.m., they found her. Catherine Reynolds was alive. She was in a small hunting cabin, abandoned and deep in the woods, more than a mile from the nearest trail. She was bound with zip ties, dehydrated, covered in bruises, but alive. The cabin had no running water, no electricity. Osei had kept her there for 3 days. He'd provided minimal food and water. He'd told her no one would find her. He'd told her he would decide when she could go home. But Kwame Osei was not at the cabin when police arrived. He'd left that morning and had not returned. Catherine was transported to Grant Medical Center in Columbus. She was treated for dehydration, minor lacerations, and shock. Physically, her injuries were not life-threatening. Emotionally, the damage was incalculable. David Reynolds was at the hospital within 2 hours. The reunion was private. No cameras, no statements, just a family made whole again, however fractured. The manhunt for Kwame Osei continued. He'd abandoned the rental car near the state park. He was now on foot, moving through rural Ohio with limited resources. On October 16th at 11:30 a.m., a clerk at a gas station in MacArthur, Ohio, recognized Osei from the news coverage. She called 911 while Osei was still in the store. Police arrived within 7 minutes. Kwame Osei did not resist arrest. He said nothing. He was taken into custody without incident. The interrogation of Kwame Osei lasted 8 hours. He was represented by a public defender. For the first 6 hours, he invoked his right to remain silent. He answered no questions. He provided no explanation. Finally, through his attorney, he agreed to make a statement. It was brief. He said he'd been watching Catherine for weeks. He said he'd planned to keep her longer. He said he'd intended to release her eventually. He claimed he'd never meant to hurt her. The evidence told a different story. The zip ties had cut into her wrists. The bruises on her arms suggested resistance and force. The psychological torment of 3 days in captivity with no knowledge of her fate was, by any measure, harm. Kwame Osei was charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, and unlawful restraint. Prosecutors argued for additional charges related to stalking and the premeditated nature of the crime. The blood in his trunk, the surveillance photos, the rental car used to avoid detection, all pointed to calculated predation. Osei's defense attorney argued diminished capacity, cultural dislocation, untreated mental health issues, a difficult immigration experience. These factors, the defense claimed, contributed to Osei's inability to understand the severity of his actions. The prosecution did not dispute that Osei had faced challenges, but Assistant District Attorney Thomas Brennan was direct in his rebuttal. Hardship does not grant permission to harm others. Mental illness does not erase accountability. Kwame Osei had stalked Catherine Reynolds for weeks. He'd planned her abduction. He'd carried it out with precision. He'd held her against her will while her family suffered. The jury heard testimony from Catherine Reynolds. She described the terror of being forced into Osei's vehicle at knife point. She described the isolation of the cabin. She described believing she would never see her daughters again. She also described something else. During her captivity, Osei had talked to her. He'd told her she reminded him of someone, a woman from his past, someone who'd rejected him. Catherine had said nothing in response. She'd understood instinctively that engaging with him was dangerous. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Kwame Osei was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 32 years in prison, without possibility of parole, for 25 years. Catherine Reynolds did not return to jogging. She enrolled in therapy. Her daughters received counseling to process the trauma of nearly losing their mother. David Reynolds took a leave of absence from his job to focus on his family's recovery. In interviews conducted a year later, Catherine spoke about the lasting impact of her abduction. She described hypervigilance, difficulty sleeping, and inability to feel safe in public spaces. She also described gratitude. She'd survived. That was not guaranteed. She'd been found. That was not guaranteed either. Catherine became an advocate for women's safety. She worked with local organizations to improve park security and emergency response systems. She pushed for legislation requiring panic buttons on fitness tracking devices. She shared her story not for attention, but for prevention. Riverside Park installed additional security cameras along the jogging trails. The city increased police patrols during early morning hours. A group of local women formed a running club that operated on the buddy system. No one ran alone. Catherine Reynolds' abduction changed Columbus. It changed how women thought about their safety. It changed how law enforcement approached missing person cases involving mothers. It changed the conversation about predation and public spaces, but it could not undo what had been done. On the morning of October 12, 2023, Catherine Reynolds stretched against a park bench and started her Thursday morning run. She believed she was safe. She had every reason to believe that. The woman in the purple running jacket had done nothing wrong. She'd taken precautions. She'd chosen a popular trail in daylight hours. She'd told her family where she'd be. And still, a predator had been watching, waiting. The gray sedan at the trailhead was not random. The man inside was not opportunistic. This was calculated, deliberate. Catherine Reynolds survived because a hiker heard her cries, because police acted quickly, because evidence was collected and analyzed with urgency, because she was found within 3 days. Many others are not. Her daughters have their mother. That is what matters most. But the cost of that survival, the fear, the trauma, the permanent alteration of their sense of safety, is a price they will pay for the rest of their lives. The photo Catherine posted that morning, the selfie with her coffee cup, the optimistic caption, remains on her Instagram account. She has not deleted it. It serves as a reminder of who she was before, of what was taken, of what she fought to reclaim. Those belong to her. They always have.